This clip is brought to you by SaveWithConrad.com.
Meltzer would note Ted DiBiase suffered a concussion early in the match with R-Truth, which hurt the match. An audible was called due to the injury, as the original plan was for DiBiase to blame Virgil for his loss and lay Virgil out with Dream Street, which would have sent Virgil on his way. He would also continue, WWE is very wary about the concussion issue for obvious reasons. DiBiase only did an interview segment and one move on Raw. He won't be allowed to wrestle until medically cleared. When do you remember concussion protocol, if that's even the right phrase, becoming a thing where you guys had to, obviously there was an evolution. I mean, back in your day, you would say things like, oh, I got my bell rung, and you'd be back at it the next day, or if not later the same day. But things started to change in the 2000s. When do you remember, or is there a match or a moment or a specific incident where it started to be handled much differently?
Well, who's the kid that is now in charge of all that? What's his name?
Chris Nowinski.
When Chris Nowinski got involved after he told me, I saw him backstage after he had to quit, and I saw him like, I want to say 2 years later or something, and we were talking back in the hall, and he had gotten involved with concussions. And I said, how you doing? All that stuff. And what have you been doing? And, since you've been gone, he said, Arn, he said, I had a headache for 1 year solid. And he wasn't making a joke. He wasn't trying to be funny. I believed him. And he said, I wanted to die so many times. It was like a migraine for a solid year. And I guess, once he started to get better, it was almost like an epiphany, I guess. He wanted to call attention to, all the concussions in the business and all the dangers and all that stuff. And once he got involved and it became like a real issue, that's when things started to change. When you say Teddy did one move on Raw, he wouldn't have done one move. He wouldn't have been able to do anything, even been out by the ring. Once things got in place and protocol got put in place as far as what you do post-concussion. So once Nowinski got involved, and thank God, I'm glad that the talent is taken care of, everything changed.
And we're thankful that it did. I mean, obviously it's a different time, and I'm sure at first there's probably some old timers who maybe had some pushback about all this, but given what we know now, it's a much safer, much better business these days. Would you agree?
Hey, I'm not one of those hard asses that, go, shit, what a bunch of bullshit. They're making too much out of nothing. I had several concussions, and I'm glad the talent is taken care of. We didn't have any of that back then. We didn't have trainers. We didn't have doctors there. We didn't have anybody taking care of us. But that was the nature of the business. Right. It was not part of what we did, and kudos to WWE to putting that in place and taking care of the talent and looking at them, making sure that they're always okay. And when somebody says they're hurt, that's it. That's all they have to say. There's no argument about there, and they're not looked at in a different light or less than, they want to be conscientious for all that stuff. So, from my era to now, I'm very glad it's changed.
I'm sure you had your fair share of concussions. Do you remember which one was maybe the worst one or the most memorable one where you look back and say, God damn, it was never worse than that?
Yeah, probably the one I've talked about before when I was working for Continental, and Rick was there, and the top rope broke, and I did a flip and smacked my head on the concrete, and Rick they took me to the hospital, and Rick, after his match, came to the hospital and stayed all night. And that was like a really major bonding. The world champion is going to come sit in the lobby and all night long at the hospital, waiting to see if I'm okay, and drove my car there and brought my bag in the room where I would have my wallet and all that stuff. He did all those things for me, but I was knocked completely cuckoo. When I woke up, I had no recollection of the top rope breaking, going splat on the floor, or any of those things. That was pretty much a bad one.
And that it really is the beginning of the trouble you had with your neck injury, right?
Not really that I can see. The first inkling of my neck injury was actually in 88 or 89 when I was wrestling for WWF and Marty Jannetty in a tag match. It was either in Boston or Madison Square Garden. We had a double shot. Afternoon, evening show, and I don't remember which was which, but the afternoon show, we did a spot where those guys hit us with a victory roll, which is where you jump up. It's like a Frankensteiner.
Right.
Basically. And I just didn't get tucked. There's no blame, but Marty was with me and I just didn't get my head tucked and my head went right in the mat and I just heard, and even though it's not loud in your mind and in your ears, it is real loud. And that was the first time. Now, I thought I just jammed my neck because that's the way we would think back then. You never thought, oh, shit, I just broke my neck.
Right.
You just didn't think in those terms because you didn't think your neck could be broke.
Right.
Thought you were indestructible. I had a big, thick neck back then. I went, shit, I'm just jammed my neck. But, man, it's like just burning. It was like a pinched nerve. And I didn't know, but I cracked a vertebrae. So we got through the match. Thank God those guys did most of the match. I got there that night, worked another match, which I did less than I did that afternoon, thank God. Get back home a few days later. Now, managed to work through it, and that's where I went and got my first test. And they said, okay, you got a slight crack in whatever vertebrae it was. And I managed to hide it. I managed to rehab it and just get through it on my own because you wasn't going to miss no days back then.
Yeah.
That's for sure. Not with that, in that company, with things being red hot the way they were and the way we were positioned, I wasn't going to miss a single day of work. And so, believe it or not, after, couple, 3 weeks, it started to get better and better, and it just healed itself.
Thank God for that.
Hey, it's Conrad Thompson. Thanks for checking out the podcast here on YouTube. Be sure to hit the subscribe button and the notifications bell so you get a notice anytime we upload some new content. And go save yourself some money right now. If you're in a 30-year loan or you have credit card debt, it's not a matter of if I can save you money. It's a matter of how much. Find out right now for free at SaveWithConrad.com.